Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I am here today with Tracy Coenen. Tracy is known as a no-nonsense forensic accountant who delivers the real deal to her clients. Let's face it, when your money is on the line, there is zero time to dance around an issue. Her passion lies in helping people find answers to questions like, where did our money go? After years of watching those who couldn't justify the cost of a forensic accountant lose thousands of dollars in their divorces, Tracy knew she had to create a solution. That's why she put her heart into creating the Divorce Money Guide. Tracy takes divorcing people step by step through the process of gathering and analyzing their financial documents to see what their money has been spent on and whether there is any money missing. The fancy titles and letters, Tracy works as a forensic accountant through her firm, Sequence Incorporated, Forensic Accounting. She has been doing fraud investigations for more than 25 years and is a CPA, certified public accountant, CFF, certified in financial forensics, and MAFF, master analyst in financial forensics. Tracy testifies as an expert witness around the country. So I'm pretty excited to have her on the show today because I know that this is going to be amazing for a lot of women out there and maybe a few men to help them so they're not a victim if they're getting divorced. So welcome, Tracy, to the Sisterhood of Sweat.
Thank you for having me. That was a mouthful to introduce me, wasn't it? Lots of stuff going on.
Hey, I love it. I mean, and we were talking that you're from Milwaukee. Is it snowing up there? Are we having cold or warm weather right now?
It was snowing a little bit today. It's not at the moment, but it was earlier today.
And we're just coming off the holidays. And I know that this is like a time of year that's supposed to be jolly and happy, but a lot of times it isn't for some people, and people get divorced around the holidays. And
Right.
I mean, it's like I think sometimes, and it makes the holidays hard if you are divorced. And even even though they're supposed to be joyful, sometimes I think because it's supposed to be a certain way, and it isn't, it makes it worse. Like if you're in a horrible relationship.
A lot of people know that they're going to be getting divorced, but they choose to wait until after the holidays. They say, we don't want to ruin Christmas for the kids or whatever holiday they celebrate. And so it is a very stressful time for a lot of people. And I work specifically with women in divorce. I do work with some men, but mostly I work with women, a lot of them who have been stay-at-home moms or who have sort of ramped down their careers so that they could, take on more at home to help raise the children. And so for the women, there is often a whole lot of anxiety around financial issues that come up with divorce. How am I going to pay the bills after the divorce? Am I going to be able to support myself? So all those emotions, not just the divorce itself, but the aftermath of the divorce are really test people during this holiday time.
And now that you bring that up, I think a lot of women that stayed at home, they could have had amazing careers as well, but they sacrificed for the family and they stayed home. And generally you would think when you're sacrificing that you're going to be taken care of, but that's not necessarily the case. And so many times it isn't. So how can women better protect themselves? Because I mean, you're giving up your career, you're staying home, so you're kind of out of the job loop. Maybe your husband is running the finances and you are just trusting and have no clue.
You've hit on all the really important issues that come up surrounding that. Let me start with the last one, husbands handling the finances. It is really, really typical for the husband to handle the finances. We've come a long way, baby, but men are still overwhelmingly handling the finances in a family. And a lot of women feel shame about that. I wish they wouldn't, because it's a typical thing. You trust your spouse, you trust them to take care of the money properly. You know that the bills are paid, you have money for the things you need and want, no big deal. When it comes time for divorce, now the question is, where is our money? Gosh, I thought we should have more. It seemed like we would have had more saved, or I don't know where the retirement accounts are. There's just a lot of questions surrounding basic facts about the money. Where is our money? How much do we have? What do our bills cost us every month? And then a related question that pops up is, what has my husband been spending our money on? In some cases, he may have been having an affair. How much money was spent on that? In other cases, he may have had some sort of expensive hobby and you didn't know how much that cost. In the most typical situation, it's a matter of you're wondering, did he shuttle some money away and hide it so that I can't get it in the divorce?
Oh, I mean, that's probably a big one right there, especially if you've been having problems for a while. Uh, you think when you're having these arguments that you're not worried so much. You think it'll just blow over, but maybe they're thinking, oh, I gotta start putting this money away or she's
Right.
gonna take me for everything, especially if you're angry and you're saying something like, I get half of everything.
Right. Well, and I hate the language surrounding she's going to take half of my stuff. It's not his stuff. It's your
There you
stuff
go.
together,
Right,
and it's
right.
divided. And so I work really hard to try to change the language that they use. Your wife isn't taking anything from you. You are dividing the things that you own together. So that's really important. But yes, you wonder, has he been planning and has he been doing something with the money? It's really as simple as I am helping women get their arms around what's been going on with the money, if for no other reason, so that they can have some comfort that they understand exactly what's been going on. We hope your husband isn't hiding anything or wasn't spending on anything shady. But at the end of the process, you're going to know.
So, I mean, I'm kind of jumping the gun here, but the question just keeps coming to my mind. How do you find the money they've been hiding?
It's so much easier than you think. I was listening to you read the intro and talking about the step-by-step process and thinking, if I was someone hearing that, would I think it's really that easy? I say, you're going to analyze the numbers, and it sounds hard, but it really isn't. And here's why. There are some really typical ways and places that husbands hide money. Wives too. Again, for the guys out there, we know that women hide money too. I just happen to say husbands because women are the ones who've been seeking out my help. So they're the ones that I talk to. But for example, probably the most common way that money is hidden by a husband is by opening a secret bank account that you don't know about. It's super easy for us to find that. And there's a couple of ways that we do it. And I'll tell you exactly how. You don't even have to go buy the divorce money guide. I'm going to tell you how. The most common thing that they do is they open the secret bank account and then they transfer money from your joint checking account to their secret account. So it's not so secret anymore because it's right there on your bank statement. So I show you where to look to find that.
Okay, perfect.
If they don't fund the account that way, they might get money into it some other way, but I show people how to look for clues that a secret bank account exists. Is there a bank that he's talked about a bunch? Is there a bank that has started sending a lot of credit card offers to your home? Is there a bank that you can think of that you applied for a mortgage with 5 years ago, but you never took out that mortgage, or whatever the case may be? We start thinking about banks that your husband might have done business with, and we start going down the rabbit hole that way to figure out where there might be a secret account.
That's pretty good. I like the idea that yes, they transferred money. That's going to be like a huge clue right away.
Yes.
And then also, I think when you need things and they can come up with all of this money, where did it
Right.
come from? I mean,
Right.
where is that money coming from? Because when you needed something, there was no money. But where is all this extra money coming from?
Right. That's exactly it. And they'll do things like they'll siphon off money from their paychecks. And, maybe deposit a paycheck into a secret account or deposit part of a paycheck into a secret account. And so I show people how to figure out if there's missing money from paychecks. Again, it's not hard if you know what to look for.
So good. So how did you get started into this? Did you have a rough backstory?
I
No?
don't. I often get asked, "Oh, did you go through a bad divorce yourself?" And I didn't. I got into forensic accounting in college. I was a criminology major and I was planning on becoming a prison warden. But I took a class called Financial Crime Investigations, and that's what got me interested in this. And so I became a forensic accountant more than 25 years ago. And a lot of what I do is on corporate matters where executives are stealing or companies are fighting over money. Somebody's accusing someone else of hiding money. I also do work in the area of divorce, but forensic accounting services are expensive. And so it's typically the cases with wealthier people that I'm working on. And I said, I wish that I could help ordinary people who are going through divorce and having questions about money. And why can't there be a solution out there for them? If you're the typical woman who is concerned, I don't know if my husband is hiding some money or if he's trying to cheat me in the divorce, and you say this to your divorce lawyer, they're going to say to you, okay, well, we need proof of that. Well, how do we get proof? Well, you could hire a forensic accountant, and then they go and find out it's going to be 10 grand to hire someone, maybe more. Well, divorce is already expensive, right? And so I said, if they say to their attorney, I'm not in a position to hire a forensic accountant, the attorney is going to say, well, then sorry, there's nothing we can do. If you have concerns about the money, but we can't investigate it, there's nothing to be done. So I said there has to be another solution. And that's why I came up with the Divorce Money Guide as a way to walk people through their finances at divorce time. Show you, here's your financial part of your divorce. Here are the financial documents you should think about getting. And here's what you can look for in them once you have them to see, where is my money and what's been happening to it.
So what would you say are the red flags of fraud in your marriage? Like how can you kind of spot that maybe you do have something to worry about?
Yeah, how do you know if you should be concerned or if you're just being paranoid? Because if you were to say to your husband, if you guys are going through divorce and were to say to your husband, I think you might be hiding money, he's going to say, you're paranoid, you're nuts, I'm not hiding anything, you're making things up, right? Of course, he's going to deny it. So I talk to people about spotting red flags of fraud, things like changes in behavior. Is he becoming more secretive about things that he was open about before? Is he acting suspiciously? Has he changed your access to information, especially financial information? Like maybe you can't log into online banking anymore when previously you could. Or maybe he's trying to get you to sign some legal documents without letting you read them or understand them first. Things like that, changing his behavior surrounding money. So maybe he used to use the debit or credit card for everything, and now he's suddenly using cash all the time when he's spending money, probably because he doesn't want you to know what you're spending it on. So looking for signs like that, those are the red flags that I caution people to look for. And if you're seeing those, then you probably have a little bit to be worried about and should look a little deeper.
And so what would you say, like, what do you consider financial infidelity, first of all?
Financial infidelity is any lie about the money, and it's a lie that matters. Maybe not necessarily the little white lie or the little hidden purchase or something like that, but when we're talking about secret spending, secret accounts, large purchases that you either didn't know about or didn't consent to. Typically couples have agreements about spending money and they say, well, if either of us are going to spend over this amount of money, we talk about it first. If he's violating those agreements, that's financial infidelity. Spending money on an affair, right? Anything where they are lying to you about the money, concealing spending from you, things like that would fall under that umbrella.
Yeah. Now, how do you think what's the impact then on marriage and divorce? Is this like
Well,
usually cause a
certainly.
divorce?
Well, certainly financial issues are one of the main causes of divorce, unfortunately. It kind of puts people over the edge. What I like to say is that financial infidelity can be as devastating as romantic infidelity can be. Money is security to people.
Hmm.
Money is a huge part of our lives, whether or not we want it to be.
Hmm.
So when your partner is lying to you about money, is spending behind your back, is potentially hiding money or putting your family in financial hardship,
Yeah.
that is a complete destruction of trust. So it can absolutely be a major contributing factor to divorce.
Oh, I could totally see that. Totally. Uh, well, your book, Find Me the Money, reminds me of Show Me the Money.
It's
In the
supposed to.
I always love that statement. Show me the money. Uh, so you're talking about finding hidden money in accounts. What other ways are they hiding money besides like an account? Um, besides like maybe stocks, could they hide their money in stocks you don't know about?
Absolutely. So I show people how to find those stock accounts that you don't know about by using, of all things, a tax return. I know that tax returns are intimidating to people. The forms are ugly. There's lots of pages, but there's a few specific places within a tax return that you can look that could give you hints that there are stock accounts out there that you didn't know about. So it's not, again, it's not that hard to find most of the typical ways that money is hidden. Another common way is a secret credit card. There are lots of guys, lots of men and women who have secret credit cards out there. So, how do we find that? Again, I'll just tell you how we find it. We find it because they typically pay that credit card through the joint checking account.
Okay.
Right? So again, it's looking through account statements and really paying attention to what those transactions are that can give you clues to what's going on.
So what are some other strategies for uncovering fraud in the marriage? Like besides like looking the account.
We spend a lot of time talking about looking at account statements. And so that's bank and credit card statements. And then I show how to look at the tax returns and what specifically what to look for in there. And then the third strategy within a divorce is the power of subpoenas. So a subpoena is basically a legal document that says to a company or a person, you have to turn over documents, you have to turn over evidence. And so, for example, I a lot of times recommend having your attorney send a subpoena to your spouse's employer. And what we want to get from that employer is payroll records, human resources records, anything regarding compensation that they might have, what their job is, how it might have changed, performance reviews. Because a lot of times what happens is the divorce happens and someone says, "Oh, I got demoted at work," or, "Oh, you know how every year for the last 10 years I've been getting a year-end bonus? Golly gee, this year I'm just not getting one." And so we want to get into those records of that employer and find out what's been going on to see if that story really holds water or if something else is going on.
The subpoena sounds like something that would be a great idea, but what if they're self-employed and they're the ones that are getting the subpoena?
Not so easy, right? Because if they're
Yeah.
getting the subpoena, they're probably not going to want to turn over documents. So it's a matter of really then going back and relying on those bank statements and those credit card statements
Mhm.
to tell us a story about what's been going on. When someone is self-employed, a lot of times that is a situation that's a little more complicated where you do want to start thinking about having that forensic accountant involved because they're the ones who are going to be looking for information. So here's an example. I worked on a case where the husband had a laundromat. And when the divorce started, suddenly the laundromat wasn't making any money. He had all sorts of stories about why machines were breaking down, things were going on. It's just not making any money anymore. And of course, he wasn't very forthcoming with records. we ended up having the attorney send a subpoena to the water company. And we got the water bills for a period of time from before the divorce was filed and after the divorce was filed. And what we were able to show was that the water usage at the laundromat never went down. So he was claiming there, oh, the revenue went way down. We're only making a fraction of what we did before, but the water usage showed that the machines are being used just as much as before. So that's something that ends up, coming up with that idea of what do we subpoena or what evidence can we look for. That's a little more complicated and where you're probably leaning towards needing someone like a forensic accountant.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, the tax returns are going to say how much they claimed
Right,
on their taxes, but if they're hiding money, it might
right,
not be all there. They've
right.
hidden it even from the government, right?
All right. So as a forensic accountant, what I'm often looking for is what does a tax return say versus what does their bank statements say? What kind of money is coming in and going out on that bank statement versus what does other documentation say? Oh, here's an interesting thing. He went and applied for a loan from a bank. And on his loan application, he said he was making this much because everyone wants to have all their income showing for the bank if they're asking for a loan. And so sometimes it's really a matter of putting together pieces of a puzzle and making these different comparisons to say, okay, this doesn't match with this. Now, what does that mean? And what do we need to show to the judge to try to come up with what he's really making in this business? And in many cases, when you're talking about a self-employed person, what I end up coming back to, if I'm investigating the case, is figuring out what he's spending on his personal lifestyle. So he's got the car, the house, the trips, the toys, whatever he's got. How much does that cost on a monthly basis versus what he is reporting on his tax return? And when you see a big gap there, you know that there's a problem. And judges are very willing to listen to the story of, Judge, he is claiming he makes $50,000 a year on his tax return. But we added up all his spending, and it looks to us like he's spending $200,000 a year on his personal lifestyle. Judges understand that.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like math. Two and
It's
two
just math.
equals
Yes.
four, and when it isn't equaling up, then it's a big question mark. And I think people think they can hide things, but it usually does come out in the wash. And it doesn't really pay to try to hide the money in the long run, unless you're really good at it and nobody can figure it out, I guess. Um, and how can women protect themselves? Like, what are things they can do in case they're unable to uh, prove this money
Yes.
is hidden? Like, how can they? What things should they and could they do in the marriage that is going to make them feel secure and protected no matter what?
Yes, I've got two big tips related to that. So you're in a marriage, and whether or not you think divorce is on the horizon, there are two really important ways to protect yourself. The first is with information. That means making sure that you understand where your money is, how much of it there is, and that you're monitoring that on a monthly basis, that you keep eyes on it. So make sure that you can get into online banking and every month go and see what's going in and out of your bank accounts. Make sure you know where the retirement accounts are. Be able to log into those. If you can't log in for some reason, let's say it's your husband's account with his employer and only he can see it, then have him print out an account summary once a month for you so you can see what's in there. But really work with your husband to make sure that you know where the money is, how it's being spent, and that you have visibility into all of that. Having that information is really going to be helpful. The second way that you protect yourself if you're married is by having some income of your own. So even if you are a stay-at-home mom, making sure that you have some money of your own. So do you have a part-time job or a side hustle that you can make some money from and, put that in an account that's in your name only? If that's not possible for you, is there a way for you and your husband to come to an agreement that you have some separate money of your own every month, that, whatever that dollar amount may be, that it's getting transferred to your own bank account, and that's for you to do with what you choose. It's, a way for you to potentially be able to save some money up if you are concerned and thinking maybe you do have to leave this marriage at some point. But it also gives you some autonomy that, hey, if I want to go get my nails done next week and not have anyone complain at me about it, I've got this money in this account that is for me to spend as I choose.
I love it. I love it. And so many women right now are thinking, I need to be like, hey, this is our money. I need to have some of this in my own
Right.
account.
Right.
Right.
And don't let him call it an allowance for you. I don't like thinking of it that way
Yeah.
because that's putting you in a really subservient role.
But
It's
yeah,
really just that, this money that comes in every month belongs to both of us. And I'd like to
right.
segregate some of it out just as mine to spend as I choose.
Right. And seriously, ladies, because I know sometimes when you have taken a back seat, it's like you are in the back seat. Like people start thinking differently and they think, well, I don't work. But you do. If you sat down and you figured out everything that you do for your
Right.
family on a monetary basis, you'd be making some serious jack. You'd be
It's
making
worth
some
an
serious
awful lot.
money. Yeah.
It's worth an awful lot. And I always say, you're on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week when you're a stay-at-home mom. And all of that work that you do is very valuable. Don't let anyone ever tell you, oh, I could go hire a nanny and a housekeeper and have it all taken care of. That's not true. What you do is worth a lot more than a nanny and a housekeeper. You are keeping it together at home. You are keeping the family running. You are keeping the kids alive. And that is very, very valuable. And so, again, it's about reframing how money is talked about. It's our money. We both have a vested interest in this family. We are both contributing, no matter whose name is on that paycheck.
Oh, I love it, love it, love it. And I feel like so many women, myself included, need to be reminded of those things and those facts because when you give up, I mean, it is giving up part of your power in a way when
Yes.
you are stepping back and letting them step up. It can so easily get abused or forgotten, or you could start thinking of yourself in the way that they're speaking. And so I think today's conversation helps bring us back to the languaging that we need and the reminder that we are indeed important and we are just as important, and that we need to value ourselves enough to put these safeguards in place. And I think, what they say, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And
Yes.
so you have to really realize it isn't the way that we think in the world. Like, if I'm nice to everybody, everyone's going to be nice to me. If I'm trusting to everybody, everybody's going to be trustworthy. And these are hard lessons, but I think important.
They are important. And if you're out there listening and thinking, well, it's easy for Tracy to talk, she works around money, she knows how to talk about it, she's confident about it. You're right. I know it's not as easy as it seems. And you might have to take baby steps in starting to talk about money with your spouse. I certainly hold space for that and just encourage you to start making some steps. Even if you can't have a big money conversation, if you can't say, open up the books and let me see everything. If you could start having a conversation that
Mm.
said, you know what? How much is our mortgage every month? Is that on auto pay? Where do we pay that from? That would be one small step in understanding more about your financial situation. So if it seems scary, just see if you can't start taking some small steps towards learning more about your family's money.
And I do like that you said that, taking the small steps and sitting in the discomfort. It's hard because women are taught to be good girls, nurturers, caretakers, and not so much about their boundaries, their place in life, how to stand up for themselves. And I think when you kind of get all of that together and you start with those small steps, like taking the first small step of being in discomfort, because if you're a people pleaser, which that's kind of what I was getting to, it's really hard when you know you're taking something on and somebody's so angry or it's discomfort. But if you sit in that, it makes it easier with each time that you have a
Does.
question to ask.
Yes, I totally agree. I encourage couples that if you could sit down once a week and have a 5 to 10 minute money conversation, and make it non-threatening rather than like, oh, we have our once a year huge talk about scary money stuff. Just have a small conversation once a week about it, and it becomes a lot less threatening. It becomes routine. It becomes a lot easier to talk about. Hey, this week, where are we at on the bills? We were saving for a down payment on a house. How does that account look? Oh, by the way, I got the renewal for our insurance and it's going to be this much. And so I'll be paying that next week. That's a much easier conversation to have.
And there again, like if somebody's getting divorced, I think sometimes women, they just want to get it finished, and they
Yes.
think they're so emotional, they don't want anything. And I personally, since I work with thousands of women, have seen where the woman doesn't want her children to suffer and she doesn't want it to be drama. So she doesn't go for her half and the things that she should have. And oh my gosh, then he waltzes off with the next lady and they're
Yes,
stuck basically with nothing, and it matters to them then.
it
And
sure
so
does.
I think just realizing that it is, this is both of your
Right.
money and both of your possessions together, and that it does matter that you get equal treatment if you are getting a divorce, not just saying, okay, you can have everything.
Right. I want to help empower women to not only understand their money, but then once they understand it, that helps them stand firm to say, part of this belongs to me too. And it's only fair that we each receive our share in this divorce. It's going to impact you long term. It's going to determine whether or not you can ever retire. I hate seeing women come out of divorce and say, you know what, I might never be able to retire because I have nothing saved. So, very, very important that you not walk away from the assets, that you make sure you understand what is there, what you have legal rights to as a contributing member of that family for your entire marriage.
And I love that. I love that. That needs to be a sound bite today. Uh, uh, just a little hint to my editor today. But I really like that a lot. And so how important, again, is it for women then also to make sure their name is on everything? Does that matter or not?
Having your name on an account doesn't often matter as much. It's really going to be state by state. So there are differing laws from state to state. And so if that's something that's concerning you, I would actually recommend that you speak to a family lawyer, a divorce lawyer in your state, even if you're not getting divorced necessarily. It's important that you understand the legal and financial implications. So if your name isn't on the house, does that matter and how?
Or what if this per se, this just kind of popped in my head, your husband has a business and he is hiding money, and he has made it so somebody else can take that money. Do you have ground to fight that?
You absolutely have grounds to fight that. That business is most likely a marital asset, meaning both of you have rights to it. Even if the business is in his name, you probably have rights to it. And he can't just give away assets that belong to your family and leave you out of it. So absolutely you have some rights there.
And I think that that right there is gold too, because I think so many uh people have had that happen to them and didn't know what they
Right.
didn't know. They didn't realize that all assets are marital assets, but it goes both ways, right? So if I have a business
Sure.
it's also a marital asset.
Most likely, unless you have a
Okay.
prenup that says something different, or you have a special circumstance. It can get more complicated. If he owned the business before you got married, that brings an extra level of complication to things. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's still only his and nothing to you. It's something that's why it's really important to talk with an attorney who understands the laws in your state and who you can tell the details to so they can figure out, okay, you have rights to this, you might not have rights to that.
So that's very, very good. What about women that have been married 30 plus years? Like they're in their 60s getting
We call it
divorced.
Yes, we call that gray divorce, and it's happening a lot more because it's more acceptable to get divorced. And these women say, I'm not going to live unhappy anymore. When you are older and getting divorced, it's even more important to think very carefully about getting your share of the retirement accounts, of the home equity, of anything else that might be out there because you're so close to retirement age. But one really important thing that you can also remember is that if you were married for 10 years or more, you have a right to collect Social Security on your spouse's Social Security record. That becomes important for women, especially if they haven't been working, because they might not have accumulated much in the way of Social Security for themselves. They can get paid out on their husband's Social Security record, and it doesn't impact what he gets from Social Security down the road. So that's a very important part of the gray divorce that we have to be thinking about.
So when they are able to do that, do they have to have not have worked or
It
how
doesn't
does
matter
that?
if they've worked at all.
Okay.
All they
Okay.
do is they go straight to the Social Security
Mhm.
Administration, let them know that you're inquiring about collecting on your ex-spouse's record, and they will run the calculations for you. Here's what you're entitled to on your record. Here's what you'd be entitled to on your spouse's record, and they will give you whichever number is bigger.
That's really good to know, I think. And
Yes.
what about, let's say, per se, um, you've been married 30 years or more and you're entitled to almost, I don't know, alimony for life, basically at that rate in certain states. Um, does that go away then if the person hooks up with someone else and they get married? I mean, what are those kind of stipulations?
If you're receiving alimony, most times if you do get remarried, it will stop. The other complicating factor is once your spouse retires, your alimony may stop as well. And so alimony is a wonderful tool to create some financial security for you when you don't have earning capacity of your own, but there are some dangers that go along with it, and there are circumstances under which it would stop. Or what if one day out of the blue, your ex-spouse just stops paying? And sometimes it's hard to force them to start paying again. So there are some dangers as it relates to alimony as well.
Yeah, so basically, that's why you've got to go for equal of everything on your way
Yes.
out the door. It's sort of like how when you go get a job, you need to ask for what you want because you don't want to get stuck at some low rate. So you got to ask for a little bit more when you start.
Yes. Absolutely.
So, oh gosh, this has been so, so good today. I think people are going to have a lot of questions, and it's going to at least have a lot of people thinking more proactively. Where can they get your divorce money guide?
They can get the Divorce Money Guide by going to divorcemoneyguide.com. They can find me on social media, TikTok and Instagram. I'm there as Divorce Money Guide. And please feel free to reach out with DMs or comments on the posts. I try to answer everyone, and love to answer any questions that you might have.
That's awesome. And I really have appreciated how knowledgeable you are and passionate about the topic because it really is something that women need to think about, and especially when there is gray divorce, because you might be unable to work,
Right.
right?
Well, thank you for having me. It was
Well,
fun, and
thank
I'm just
you.
happy to be able to share my knowledge.
Well, thanks for coming on, and thanks everybody for listening to this episode of the Sisterhood of Sweat. Let us know what resonated and make sure to get the divorce money guide. And as always, keep on keeping on, everyone. Bye, everybody.